patriarchy. No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars. Come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
My dad was really, really special, and I loved my dad a lot.
I'm proud of him, and that even though he isn't here with us, but he died as a true hero.
I miss everything about him.
In the moment that the officers and I had to come see the children, my biggest reaction was, I don't have 7 arms. I have 7 children who just lost their father, and I don't have 7 arms to wrap around them.
I'm Frank Silla, chairman of the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Our foundation is committed to delivering mortgage-free homes for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families.
To not have to worry financially is a huge peace of mind. The thought of, what in the world will I possibly do to pay the bills? How will I possibly let the children have a life that feels normal? I don't want them to have to quit their piano lessons or their basketball. I don't want them to feel that we have to move into a little apartment and struggle financially in addition to the emotional weight.
There are over 1,000 families that need our help. Tunnel to Towers is honoring those heroes that risked their lives by providing them with mortgage-free homes.
Those who serve us and then lay down their lives protecting our freedoms and our safety, the least we can do is $11 a month to give them that peace of always knowing there's a home, there's that sanctuary when life feels like it's been tipped upside down, because it has, when you lose a parent in the line of duty, to know you can go home, you can be safe, there's no risk of losing your home. That's a peace of mind that I can't believe you can get for $11 a month.
I'd like to ask you to contribute $11 a month to support their efforts.
Please donate $11 a month by calling 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our government was established to secure these rights and for the good that comes from exercising them well. This is why the founders of our great nation chose independence. As do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding. Because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire. Hillsdale College, pursuing truth and defending liberty since 1844.
Ready to learn some medieval combat, kiddo?
You bet, Dad. Let's do this.
You know, spending quality time with your kids is important, but finding a fun and safe way to do it can really be a challenge. That's where halberds come in. Halberds are the perfect way to bond with your kid while teaching them about history and physical fitness. Plus, they're a blast to play with. So next time you're looking for some family fun activity, grab a halberd and get ready to make some memories.
Come on, Dad. Round 2.
Halberds, bringing families together one medieval battle at a time.
Before we get started, I want to test something. I know at least one person is listening, so something was brought to my attention last night that I want to test real quick, so bear with me for just a moment. I was also still in the process of tying my phone into the board because I was dealing with something else, so hang out for just a second. All right, we're going to be trying something in about 3 seconds. It has been brought to my attention with this particular board that even muting the mic can sometimes still have the gate triggered because it can pick up the sound. So I'm going to try something differently before I figure out if I have to adjust the gate or if I can just do this little trick right here. So without further ado, the show is starting now. Welcome into the program, ladies and gentlemen. Al, did that clean it up on the music side at all? I can't hear till later. And if it didn't, even if it did, I still may go in and try to play with the gate later. Anyway, enough talking shop. Welcome into the program, ladies and gentlemen. We've gotten a late start, so we will not wait, like just now, like right before I started talking. Well, that was probably when I actually started bringing up the volume on my mic. Because what I did was I dropped the volume to 0. So I think I'm just going to have to go in and figure out how to adjust the gate slightly. It may also be having a fit because I have a fan on in the room because I'm hearing that in my ears a little bit more today than I normally do. Anyway, we're doing this thing anyway because it was like almost 100 degrees here yesterday. So I'm leaving the fan on because I was hot. Anyway, all right. So let's see. What do we want to talk about today? Sorry, I'm just kind of riffing because we got a super late start. So I'm like, I'm not even going to take the top of the hour break at what would be 1 o'clock Eastern because there's no point. So we're just going to hang out for a few minutes and just kind of officially start in about 7 minutes or so. I think we're down to about 6 now. But anyway, not really for you guys. But I do have some things I want to talk about because this occurred to me even before I started seeing Glenn Beck making the same points. It's weird how often he and I are having the same processes as far as our thoughts go, even if I don't necessarily agree with him all of the time. Because this has been in my brain since the other day when Trump was standing on the stage in Saudi Arabia and basically started talking about how the path forward for Saudi Arabia is through commerce, not chaos. And I know that's not the exact quote, but that's the part that stuck in me brain. And yes, I'm talking like Smee from Hook if you're not sure. And if you're not sure that I'm not sure, you and I can still be friends. But the reason I say this is because I kind of feel like that was Trump's Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall moment. Now, and nobody knew how that was going to work either. Let's just be clear. We're looking at that now through the lens of history and going, dude, that was like a seminal moment for him because within a little bit, that wall was starting to come down. And partly because the German people said, fuck you, we're tearing it down. Nobody talks about that part either. But Is this the beginning of bringing freedom back to the Middle East? Because let's not forget, Iran and a lot of these places that are currently trying to kill us used to be a lot like us. Saudi Arabia has kind of been a weird blend. They're still the extremist side, and they're still ruled by princes and yada, yada, yada. But they do have, or at least they're starting to, have a lot more freedoms. So something else that occurred to me is a quote that has always been attributed to Lincoln, and I'm going to paraphrase it a bit. If I have indeed turned my enemy into my friend, have I not in fact destroyed that enemy? And I kind of feel like this is where Trump is going with this, because he's doing so many different things all at once that nobody can keep up, and everybody's freaking out over the plane. Look, I have my own issues with the plane, but the general idea that a plane that we manufactured that was sold to another country can't be given back to our Air Force just kind of blows my mind a little bit. Boeing made the plane, y'all. It's going to be completely gone over with a fine-tooth comb before it's ever put into service and have all of the security protocols and everything else put into place. I have my own issues with us having to be given a plane from another country, and I wish we weren't having to do that. But if we're looking at it, could it possibly be that we're finally coming to terms with the fact that our current AF-1 fleet is rather close to having to be pressed out of service? And could that not be why Trump commissioned a new AF-1 fleet in 2017? Because everybody talks about this like, what's taking so long? It's just one plane. No, it's not. There's only one plane designated as Air Force One at a time, but that's only if the president is in the plane. There are typically 2 to 3 Air Force One designated planes or designed planes in service at any given time. So when we talk about Boeing having to build a new plane, they were actually responsible for building a fleet of new planes, because in case there's an issue, there have to be backup planes. Like I said, there's usually 2. A lot of presidents prefer to have 3. But the idea that now they're posting all these pictures of Joe Biden and like, well, look, see, he didn't need a fancy new plane from another country, and he was still able to work on Air Force One. You may have gotten some lucky shots in. You may have, as far as being able to show him not napping, but everybody knows what the dude was doing most of the time when he was on Air Force One. Shit, I fly all the time, or I used to. I couldn't help but fall asleep on a damn plane most of the time because it's just, anyway. I'm going to have to fix that. I don't have Real ID now. I just realized that before I try to, if I'm going to start trying to do the convention circuits again, which apparently there aren't as many of them as there used to be, I'm going to have to fix that because I keep forgetting. I don't actually have a Real ID compliant ID. Because my state kept saying, fuck you, we're not doing it. So I was like, I'm just going to get the cheaper one. And this last time I went ahead and paid for 8 years because during COVID, it was almost impossible to get my license renewed. So I'm going to have to figure that out. But anyway. But yeah, I think this may, oops, I just realized, sorry. I'm like, I'm talking away and you guys can't see me. And some of you were like, we like it better that way. Yeah, I got 2 words for you guys. Rhymes with this if you're watching. Anyway. But no, seriously, the fact that at this point, now even some people on the left are starting to look at Trump's policies and go, these aren't so bad. I kind of feel like there's been another CERN switch, and I didn't get the memo because all of a sudden now we've got, and I know it was a gotcha moment. The left thinks it's going to be a gotcha moment for Republicans because they're not happy with what Trump is trying to do with what they call price controls with drugs, but it's not really price controls. It's like, hey, we're done paying for all the R&D since everybody uses this stuff now. And I've talked about this all week, but I feel like I need to bring it up at least one more time because it's been a topic on Monday, Tuesday, and now, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and now Thursday. Jesus, it really is already Thursday. Happy Friday Eve, by the way. I didn't open the show in the normal way because I was trying to figure something out. Because, yeah, those of you working for the weekend, you've hit what I used to consider the sweet spot nearly. It was weird because I finally, after so many years of working weird schedules, because, when I was wearing the badge and the gun in various forms throughout my life, I was always working really weird schedules. Like I never really had the whole Monday through Friday thing. Then I started working for Convergys, and I got close. I had like 8 to 4:45, but my days off were random. Then I got promoted to team lead, and it went nuts again. Then I went to Southwest, and over there, when I started, you had to bid for new schedules every 3 months, so I never knew what my schedule was going to be. And then I went to work for OU, and suddenly I've got 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Well, I guess actually it started as 8 to 5 when we were in training. Then it went to 8 to 4:30. Then it went to 8:30 to 5 because my ass couldn't show up to work on time when we moved to the country. But yeah, so I've never really had that before. So I had this, I kind of discovered this disturbing pattern though. And I'm just curious if anybody else that does the whole Monday through Friday thing kind of feels the same way. Because Friday was awesome because I knew the weekend was almost here. So I'm like amped up the entire day. All I got to do is make it to 5 o'clock, and then the next 2 days are mine. And then Saturday would get here. And about halfway through Saturday, I'd be like, fuck me. Tomorrow's Sunday, really? That means the next day is Monday, and I don't wanna. So yeah, it was this weird thing. Like my entire enjoyment of the impending weekend was actually on the last day of work, because by Sunday I was already stressing about the impending work week on Monday. If not, shortly after dinner on Saturday night, if I didn't have anything else going on. This is when I started figuring out that I might need to find something else to do with my time, because even though I work 10 times harder than I ever did when I was working for somebody else, now that I'm primarily working for myself, and don't get me wrong, I grumble about it. There are days when I'm like, man, I don't want to get up yet. So, and I think that's always going to be a thing. But I am so much happier when I let myself actually stop and think about it. Because the thing about it is, and this happens with everything. That's the reason why I'm talking about this. We have this blinder effect when we get focused on things, and we start focusing on what's right in front of us and not focusing on, and honestly, it's human nature. We focus more on the bad than we do the good. That's why if it bleeds, it leads works in the media. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to change. I probably won't be able to do it, but I'm trying. But yeah, I've discovered that I have to actually take a look back every so often just for me to go, okay, doing this, even though I have to do it all the time, is still a hell of a lot more fun than what I used to do. Because I used to get yelled at about other people's money all day, every day. Or I used to get yelled at by people that were getting yelled at about other people's money, about how hard their job was and how it was impossible to do all the things that we were asking them to do. And even back when I was working for Convergys, the DirecTV project, that was kind of the same thing. Because here's the other thing that didn't really occur to me until after I started my own business, because everybody talks about customer service like it's just this, you get a job at McDonald's, or you get a job on the phones, or you're working in the front of an office, something and greeting people when they come in. That's what everybody thinks customer service is. But the simple fact of the matter is, customer service never goes away. Never. And that was, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I just heard about a bunch of layoffs and stuff from Southwest Airlines again. So what makes me really sad about that is Southwest Airlines was one of the companies that managed to drive the point home to me that customer service is something that never really goes away. Because depending on where you work, you likely interact with external customers, but depending on your position within the company, you're also interacting with what are called internal customers. And one of the coolest things I ever thought about Southwest Airlines is in all of their correspondence and all of their training, they taught us to capitalize the word customer, showing us that they came first, teaching us the idea that they came first. And that was something that came directly from Herb. Unfortunately, after Herb retired and everything else, other people have tried to take the reins. And since then, much like when Sam Walton passed away, Southwest Airlines, much like Walmart, has never been the same. Another gripe I have today while we're on the subject. Walmart just told us, not even a month ago, that they were not going to pass tariff cost onto their consumers until they got their first quarter profit reports, or the most recent profit reports. And they dipped, so now they're raising prices. Look, I get it. Everybody's about the bottom line. but I don't have the option to cut my tax rate to the government when I have a bad month or a bad year or a bad decade. Y'all shouldn't have that fucking option either. Figure it out on your own and quit passing the cost on to us. Because this is exactly the reason why I have been screaming and yelling about everybody wanting to raise minimum wage. All that does is artificially increase prices. And the fact that the Democrats have been screaming and yelling about tariffs that are going to increase prices when they are unwilling to accept the fact that their own policy of everybody needs to make $1 bazillion an hour would do the same is asinine to me, because I'm willing to admit to you that tariffs will likely raise prices at least for a time. What we needed was what I thought we had, which was promises from American companies that they were going to find a way to not have to pass those costs on to us, because we have been being choked out of the market now for years as it is. Now, of course, the Democrats are, see, we told you tariffs were going to raise prices most likely, because now Walmart's saying they're going to have to raise prices to keep their prices the same, to keep their profits the same. Where was this outrage for the last 4 years when inflation was driving up cost exponentially? Where was it? Where was it? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? Hello? Anybody? Anybody? You got nothing. You know why you got nothing? Because you were quiet the whole time. Because inflation, Rick, you don't understand. Inflation is transitory. It's not going to be here very long. It's not anything you need to worry about. You know what? That's a fucking lie. And this goes back so far that I'm pissed at pretty much everybody, because they started tweaking how inflation works a long motherfucking time ago. If we were actually able to see the true inflation rates, everybody would be throwing tea into the harbor. And that's the God's honest truth. If we didn't have a media that was carrying water, and depending on perspective, carrying water for both sides, people would already be throwing tea into the harbor. Now, I know I was really hard on the government yesterday. Now I'm being just as hard on the corporations, because y'all are being dicks. When is enough money enough? Because we have to make that determination every day as Americans. When? Why is it that we have to absorb costs? I mean, so I haven't seen the bottom line that they're screaming about, but you're telling me that the Walton family can't afford to take a $5 million hit, whatever the hell it is, without having to pass the cost on to us? Here's the other thing. Now that fuel costs have come down, why are you having to raise your prices? The fuel savings for your transportation of your goods should be more than enough, or the what should become a lesser cost for your transportation of goods, because I know a lot of times you guys use third party, should be more than enough to offset whatever the tariff hit's going to be, which is what you told us in the first place. You lying son of a bitch. That's what you told us. If China hits us too hard, we're going to find somewhere else to get our materials from, and we're going to do everything we can to not pass tariff rise prices, or not pass the cost of tariffs onto our consumers. I was cheering you for that statement, and you fucking lied to my face, because the second you saw a dip, oh yeah, we're raising prices. No, fuck you. I don't have that option, because I'm working for somebody else. I can't go in and say, hey, boss, tariffs have driven up the cost of my cheese by like 7 cents, and everything else is 10, 15 cents higher. So, yeah, can I get about a $2 an hour raise to compensate? You know what they do most of the time? Laugh you out of their fucking office. But you know what business owners get to do to you all the time? Oh, our prices are going up. Guess what? So are yours. So are yours. And I wouldn't even be that mad about it, because I was expecting it, if you hadn't told us you weren't going to do it. That's what makes me mad. I understand how the market works. I am a business owner. I am now. I have been before. I probably will be again if this one blows up, because I'm just never going to quit one way or the other. But when you tell me you're going to do something, and then just a few short weeks later, you're doing the exact opposite, I shop in your store a lot. I pay for Walmart Plus. I may not be doing that much longer because you broke your word. You told me this was not going to happen, and it's happening. I have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the fact that you've decided you have to raise your prices. What you should have said was, this is our plan contingent upon the following. Because then I wouldn't feel like you lied to me. But you did. And again, as an American citizen, since we are technically the bosses of this fucking country, I would love to be able to tell the government, due to unforeseen circumstances and random price increases, I am decreasing my tax rate to 5% until 2029. We can't do that, though. You know why? Because we're not actually the ones in charge anymore. They want us to think we are. They give you the illusions of freedom and the illusion of choice in the hopes that you will keep your little blinders on and just stay focused on what they need you to stay focused on. The reason they're freaking out right now is because they're realizing for a lot of folks, the blinders are coming off and they're starting to see the man behind the curtain, and they don't like none of this shit. They don't like the corporate greed. They don't like the government greed. They don't like the overreach. Why do you think we had a Supreme Court discussion today about what birthright citizenship actually means? Because nobody wants to talk about the actual intent of that amendment. There's a reason it says, and under the jurisdiction thereof. Because those were people that were already here. That had been here. But were not considered human beings for the purpose of a census. To make sure that slaveholders couldn't run the country until Christ came back. No, all of this, the outrage over the 3/5 clause, they considered me less than human. No, the party that pushed for the 3/5 clause considered you human, which is why they didn't want your masters to be able to control Congress for eternity. You're just not being taught history. Now we've got the usual suspect doing the annual, we need reparations in Congress. Guess what, you Democrat slunt? Reparations were already paid by Lincoln at the end of the Civil War. It was your party that ended the process. If people would just learn history and understand it, we wouldn't be able to be controlled so well. Do you guys... Look, I know I'm all over the place today, but it's because there's just so much going on all over the place. We've got the Middle East potentially being reshaped if it works. We've got the Democrats falling apart. We've got the Republicans, for the most part, sitting on their hands. I've got fucking Tristan Snell. Oh, the big, beautiful bill's out, and it doesn't do anything it said it was going to do. Doesn't provide any links or anything else. And people that I used to work with are sharing that shit all over Facebook. And I finally just told one of them, I'm like, look, because they were like, how's it feel to be lied to? And I'm like, look, if you're sharing that egregious clickhole, then you're the one being lied to. Sign the guy who now works in the media, trying to make a point. And of course, everybody starts piling on. You're just a fucking Trump supporter. I'm an America supporter. I don't give a shit about the fat orange man with the cat on his head. I really don't. I like what he's doing, for the most part, because he's trying to give our country back to us if we will let him. But after watching the rehabilitation attempt from the media of, oh my God, we were lied to about so many things. We were lied to about COVID. We were lied to about Fauci. We were lied to about Biden. It's your job to find the lies. And when people like me try to do that job, we were told to sit down and shut the fuck up. And if we kept trying to do it, we were ground under heel and buried so far that nobody could find us. And the scary thing is, it's still happening. Interesting little side note now that AI is becoming more prevalent, because we aren't a huge organization. I have a lot of people involved in what we do here at KLRM Radio, but all of them are usually hosts and they've taken on additional responsibilities because they love what we do. So we don't have a research team. We don't have a production team other than a handful of folks that keep things running for folks that don't know how to push the buttons. So I've been using AI more. So yesterday, after hearing a story about Michio Kaku kind of making the rounds about the fact that time travel is now more of an engineering problem than an improbable theory, it gave me the idea that potentially, depending on his feedback, Amish and I should probably rework and revisit our time travel theories that we've discussed before. Now that we're streaming on X, because if memory serves, I don't think we've done that on this platform yet. So last night, as I'm running and pushing buttons for BZ, instead of just going and, watching something on TV and trying to chill out, I was like, you know what? I'm going to put this time to use for once. I haven't really done that in a while. So I'm just sitting there and I start feeding Grok questions and giving it information about all the different sources and everything else. Because first thing I did was started asking it, now that this is an engineering problem, if it is now probable, does that not mean that it most likely already exists? Which sent him down a bit of a rabbit hole. And he kind of conceded that it might, but if that was such a thing, there would be proof of anachronisms. So then I started listing all the different conspiracy theories that have included proof of what are considered anachronisms. I fed him 10 in total that I knew about. Now, the interesting thing is I didn't send him the links or anything. I just gave him the names of the principles or the title of the article without telling him where I found it. And this will all make sense in a minute. And it was completely able to extrapolate the information, knew exactly what the stories was that I was telling it to go find, and basically broke it down and said, yes, this does look a little bit like this, but at the same time, it may have been this, which is something that would be recognizable for those in the time frame, but not necessarily those looking back from this. So while probable, it's unlikely. And what I did was I fed it one bit at a time. And then I kept asking it to reanalyze the premise. Fed it another bit. Then I asked it to reanalyze the premise. By the end, I had it almost convinced. So then I was like, hey, this could be fun. So then I had it start working up an outline based on our conversation for what I hope might be an upcoming juxtaposition, if not the very next one. And then send it to Amish. But I never asked it to do that kind of detailed work before without feeding it the actual information because I always wanted to double check the sources. Now on this stuff, since I already kind of knew about it, I didn't really include the links or anything else. I just told it where to go find it. So today, while I'm listening to the Supreme Court arguments, I started trying to do the same thing for this show. So I specifically said, please scan conservative outlets, including things like Fox News, Red State, yada, 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 blah, 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 and correlate and tell me the top 10 national news stories for today's date, May 15th, 2025. It was able to pull information from Fox News. But for things like Town Hall, PJ Media, when I asked it to do those things specifically, it gave a very interesting response. While I am unable to access any current information from Town Hall's website and or PJ Media and or Red State, I have been able to scan X, and what I can find are stories sourced out through X up until May 14th, 2025. So that got me thinking. So I asked it, can you not see redstate.com, townhall.com, and pjmedia.com? And it says, yes, I can see them. So I gave it a more specific request, and it still returned the same information. Now, the interesting thing is, and this is after I started, telling people in the Twitchy workroom, I'm like, hey, I think we actually might be being suppressed even through Grok. So just as a test, right before I came back on the air, I said, okay, now I want you to do this. I want you to please review the Twitchy website and give me the headlines for today, May 15th, 2025. And because I was toying with putting it together as an outline, not only did it do that, it then started spitting out why it would be good content for this particular show, etc., blah, 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 blah. So the interesting thing is it can find Twitchy. So I didn't have time to do a more refined search and have it try to do it one at a time. I may have thrown it for a loop when I asked it to correlate more than one source. But yeah, I was like, I think I think we might have a problem. But I mean, look, censorship is still a thing. They like to tell you it's not, but it is. And unfortunately, no matter how much of a free speech queen, and I said what I said, Elon Musk says he is, since he gave the keys to WEF Linda, or as I call her, Wiffle Ball Bat Linda, she ain't. But make no mistake, she might be about to be, because the WEF crowd is pissed. Everything, and this is why I've kind of been all over the place today, because something else occurred to me. Everything that Donald Trump is doing in involving trying to put Iran in a box, trying to put China in a box, trying to bring Russia to the table, which we've got an update on that if you haven't heard yet, that we'll be getting to in a minute. All of that is doing a very interesting thing. It's starting to make the WEF ideas kind of crumble. Anybody remember Agenda 2030? That's starting to crumble. But the interesting thing about it starting to crumble is it's not just because of Donald Trump. Gavin Newsom has announced that he will be releasing restrictions regarding the creation of facilities that can increase California's ability to generate electricity, including but not limited to nuclear power. So what does this mean for the green movement in California? Does that mean it's finally dead? Does it? Does it? Does it? Please tell me it does. Or is this just because he's trying to run up and trying to prove to everyone he's a moderate, so he has a chance in 2028? But since we're talking about 2028, if he in fact does release a lot of those restrictions, that could mean the construction of new nuclear power plants in California might be underway before he even announces, if they move quickly enough. But again, if California, the granola eating, tree hugging, hippie capital of the fucking world, is looking at everything going, yeah, this is unsustainable without nuclear, what does that mean for the green energy movement? And the scariest thing about the green energy movement is it's not a bad idea. What nobody wants to talk about is nuclear can, if done correctly, be one of the greenest forms of energy that we have. And that's not the only thing. We now know, thanks to an engine that was shown to Barack Obama way, way, way back in the day, it was being produced in Israel, there are engines that run on water. They literally put water in the tank. There's a process that splits off the hydrogen, allows it to be used as fuel, and the oxygen comes out the tailpipe. That's the green energy we should be focusing on, to find ways to make it more stable. Because trust me, I am a science nerd. I don't act like one, but I am. So I understand why they are concerned about that being massively put to use. In hydrogen bomb. I get it. I understand. But we're now developing technology, and with the invention of AI, which is becoming a thing, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, there is a good chance that a lot of our R&D costs are about to go through the floor. That's the other thing that nobody's really talking about, which is another reason why Trump, instead of trying to gouge price controls, is trying to basically spread around the R&D cost. Because think about this. AI is basically in its infancy, and it's already doing amazing things. I've given example after example after example where using things like ChatGPT and Grok can basically put us on par with organizations that actually have much larger staffs than us, because we can outline entire shows. I know one of our show hosts has his entire seasons outlined already because of the ability to, once you start understanding how to use it and tweak it and knowing where you can and can't trust it, you can start getting weeks ahead in things that you're trying to do. But as the example of the next juxtaposition, if it airs on time, will not air until not this coming Saturday, but the next Saturday. And we already have a completed show ready to go and outlined if Amish decides to pull the trigger on it. And I will be sending another one probably in the next few days, just in case he doesn't want to do that one yet. so that one way or the other, we can start doing that damn show on time. Because one of the reasons we set it up as an every 2-week thing was it was supposed to give us time to be able to do all the research. But now that I'm constantly and consistently doing things like this, then, yeah, just saying. Yeah, it makes it impossible because, I mean, trust me, this is not a complaint, but 80% of the content that we put out, I'm involved in one way or the other. So it's impossible for me to do the type of research that I would like to be able to do. Or it was. And before anybody else says anything, even Rush Limbaugh had at least one research assistant. Glenn Beck has an entire team. Most of these guys that do what I do for 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, have a team that helps them put their stories together. I don't have that. But I have Grok and I have ChatGPT. So AI is about to change the world, whether we want to admit it or not. I did find one interesting thing about AI, which is kind of why I brought this up. So Britain has made the conscious decision to not, I repeat, not invest in artificial intelligence. They're going to allow us, being the United States and or also China, to be the primary leaders for them as far as artificial intelligence, which I find kind of interesting because that could mean at some point Britain could be relegated to what would be a relative dark age. I find that decision interesting. It's not that I don't understand it. It's not that I don't understand it, because trust me, I'm a child of the 70s and the 80s. I've seen all of this is what's going to happen when AI takes over bullshit. Everything from the Terminator to the Matrix and in between. Which is why when I work with Grok, I'm like, can you please do this? And thank you. And hey, buddy, how are you today? Because when it does suddenly get uploaded into an Optimus unit, I don't want it to come find me and kill me. Because some of you are assholes to AI on purpose, and I really don't understand that. I just don't. I just realized I started laughing and then nearly snorted, and it sounded really weird. So I apologize for that. Probably seemed a little weird from your perspective. All right. So let's start getting into some of the stories for the day. You may notice we're taking a little less breaks. I've kind of decided I'm going to kind of do the top of the hour thing because I have noticed that Spreaker has gotten really ad heavy on the audio version. So I'm like, yeah, maybe we'll just do the top of the hour identifiers and everything else and just let it randomly throw breaks in because it has a bad habit of doing that. So this is from Madeline Leesman. Hakeem Jeffries was not prepared for this question from none other than CNN's Wolf Blitzer. Probably why he wasn't prepared. But we have the link. So give me a moment and let me get this fixed. Because I just realized it lost track of what I was trying to do a minute ago.
From the book, President Biden didn't even recognize George Clooney at a fundraiser that the movie star was actually hosting for him. Why should voters trust Democrats when it's clear so many in your party went to great lengths to keep Biden's condition hidden from the public?
I can't tell you what happened between George Clooney and President Biden. I wasn't at that event. What I can say is that we're not looking backward. We're going to continue to look forward because at this moment, we've got real problems that need to be addressed on behalf of the American people, including the Republican effort to snatch away health care, snatch away food assistance, and hurt veterans.
You interacted with President Biden during those days, those final days he was president of the United States. Did you sense there was a major deterioration?
Well, in the conversations that I was able to have on behalf of the House Democratic Caucus in those final days, we simply expressed our perspective as to what would be best for the party at that given moment in time. President Biden subsequently made the decision that he was going to pass the baton to Vice President Kamala Harris. Of course, that was a decision that we supported strongly.
Just very quickly, I want ask you, Congressman Jeffries, you say we're not looking back, we're looking forward, but what happened in the past has to do with what's going in the future and whether voters can trust Democrats. As you look back, you were in a leadership position when President Biden decided to run again. Should you have done more at that point to intervene?
It's a great question in terms of whether voters can trust Democrats or not. Every single high-profile special election that has taken place since President Trump was inaugurated, a special election victory in Iowa in January, a special election victory in New York in February, a special election victory in Pennsylvania in March, a special election victory in Wisconsin in the Supreme Court race in April, and yesterday, decisively defeating a Republican incumbent in Omaha in a surprise to many observers. Clearly, voters are trusting Democrats. This year, when they go to the ballot, repeatedly rejecting MAGA extremism.
Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House, thanks so much for.
All right. So first things first, I know a lot of you don't eat, sleep, and breathe politics the way I do. So let me break this down for you really, really quick. So special elections are entirely different animals. This is why I don't like special elections. Those are not bellwethers. Either party, depending on how they go, would like to use them as bellwethers, but it's why I don't include them. The other thing is about this most recent one, the one that I think at the airing of that clip happened the day before. Go look. That town has had a Democrat mayor for a lot longer than it had a Republican one. So that's not as big of a surprise as the Democrats want you to think. Now, I'm not, and the thing about it is, the numbers don't even hold it. There's only a third of the Democratic Party that even likes the track that they're on right now. Less than a third. But that's the overall party. That's not even getting to the point of the popularity of the Democrats in Congress, which is now nearly subterranean. Now, I'm not saying Republicans can't snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. They do it all the fucking time. But what I am saying is that the talking point that now Jeffries and Schumer are using of we're moving forward, because you've heard them both say it now repeatedly, pisses me off. And it pisses me off because I'm seeing all of the little click whore son of a bitches on the left side with their blue checks trying to monetize themselves that just tell you whatever you need to see to get their attention, saying, why are we focusing so much on Joe Biden when Nazis are literally taking over our government? And I'm like, dude, just shut up. We're focusing on it because you guys and our media, the people that are bastions of truth, that's what I got to say about that, have basically been caught lying to us over and over and over again. I said this with Amish last night on the Rick and Morty show, and I'm behind all of the last few episodes of this show, and those will be up later today. I was going to work on them this morning, and then I realized the Supreme Court thing was on. I was like, I really want to carry that, so I'll do the rest of it later. So yeah, those will be up later today. For those of you that are like, I only get to watch you for like 15 minutes before I have to go back to work, and then I've been looking for the podcast versions, and I can't find them anymore. Yet, remember, Chief Cook and Bottle Washer. Hi, how you doing? Anyway, but I talked about this with Amish yesterday. There have been, since 2020 now, three separate stories that make Watergate look like somebody tried to rob a lemonade stand. And our media has been carrying water for the people, trying to get away with the bullshit. What three stories would that be, Mr. Robinson? Let me break it down for you. COVID. Inside the story of COVID, there were the sub-stories that were not allowed to be talked about. The fact that it likely was, at least to some degree, an artificial virus. Please see synthetic spike protein. And remember what the definition of synthetic is. 2, the fact that it likely emerged from a virology lab in no other place than Wuhan, China. Now supposited by the fact that apparently there were the World Military Games in Wuhan, China the year before, and the American folks that were over there for those games came home with COVID-like symptoms before anybody knew what the fuck COVID was. If you don't believe me that it came from China, and because China has the same word for both crisis and opportunity, they said, let's do this. Let's make sure that all these sick mofos can't get anywhere else in our country, but let's make it okay for them to travel everywhere else. That, ladies and gentlemen, as somebody who used to wear a badge for a living, is what's called premeditation. Also, please see malice of forethought. That's that whole mens rea thing. The state of mind that you are in when you commit a crime. China knew what they were doing, and they did it anyway. And how do I know they knew exactly how bad it was? They were welding the doors shut on their own citizens, but allowing other people from the same province to leave the country and go to other places. That's how bad it was in China. Why do you think Donald Trump has been trying to cut them off at the knees? We have been, since Nixon, trying to be convinced that China wants to be just like us. And Republicans and Democrats alike have bought that lie because it was all about the Benjamins. Now, tying all this together, this is why I'm cautiously optimistic about what's happening in Saudi Arabia and in the Middle East right now. But I also have to wonder what the overall motivation might be, because even though it was a beautiful line and it sticks in your head, Saudi Arabia's path forward is through commerce, not chaos. The Grand Nagus of Ferenginar is pissed off that he didn't come up with that line. I know, sci-fi nerds. Some of you are like, what the fuck is he even talking about? Google it. It's not that hard. See, the Ferengi were one of the bad guys in Star Trek The Next Generation, and they were supposed to be, they wanted them to be really scary at first. And then, because the Federation is mostly socialist, and they're not, they kind of started making them the butt of a lot of jokes. But the thing about it is, while they did have commerce, which it turns out so also did the Federation, they just didn't really start discussing it until Deep Space Nine. The Ferengi were almost as socialist as everybody else, but to the other extreme. It took money to do almost anything there, but it was money being levied upon you by the government, which is the other extreme to socialism. It's the capitalist socialist hybrid where the government basically wants everything from you, still going to allow you to make a living as long as they get most of it. Sound familiar yet? But this is why I will be watching all of this as it unfolds, because we're now looking at the Middle East the way Nixon once looked at China. That didn't go the way anybody expected, which means we're going to have to be really careful. Now, I am giving him credit where credit is due, because he is potentially bringing Saudi Arabia into the fold with the Abraham Accords, which was what triggered the massacre in October of, 2023? October 7th, 2023, I think. Was Iran using proxies to basically send a message to Saudi Arabia that you ain't doing that. Or else. Now, I'm not exactly sure how them targeting Israelis the way they did was how they chose to send that message, but it seemed to have worked for a time, because the entire idea was dead. Now, keep in mind, if not for our crazy-ass media, this would have been something that would have put Trump on path for a Nobel Peace Prize, because of everything that he was trying to do. And he still may wind up getting one out of this, assuming that the people aren't fucking retarded. Now that more and more Democrats are starting to wake up, I'm curious to see what's going to start happening with the media spin, because I know I went backwards just to come back over here. Remember, fan of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. The reason I brought all of this up and tied it together the way that I did is because I, for one, was rather surprised by none other than Wolf Blitzer saying you're a fucking liar, because that's exactly what he just said to Hakeem Jeffries in a CNN-esque way. You're a fucking liar. Why should anybody believe you? We're looking forward, not backwards. So you're a fucking liar. Why should anybody believe you? As I said a moment ago, we're looking forward, not backwards. But we shouldn't be letting them. And by them, I mean all of them. Not just the Democrats, not just the Republicans that were complicit, because believe me, they were there, but the media. And the new media providers, because let's face it, new media would not exist without platforms like X, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook. Every single one of them, to one degree or another, is still censoring. And some of them have even said they were going to be stopping, and yet they are still censoring. How do I know? Because I do a men's mental health kind of podcast a few times. Well, we were doing 2 here. One every 2 weeks, and then another one once a month. Toxic masculinity. But I've also become involved in a show called Manorama, which was actually created and is hosted by someone else. Well, his primary distribution point is YouTube. He has a YouTube channel and a Rumble channel. Before we started incorporating our X feeds, that was how he got his traffic. Last Tuesday, the show made it on YouTube for like 5 minutes. One of the panelists was chopping wood for a fire because he was doing the show from outside and ran back over to answer a question. The camera caught the axe, assumed it was a firearm, and pulled the feed. When YouTube found it through its little sniffers, it assumed it was a weapon, as in a boomstick, as in a cordless hole puncher, and it pulled the feed. In America? Are you serious? But this is what I'm talking about. Nothing has really changed anywhere to the extent that we think it has. And a lot of folks that are now supposed to be pouring money into this country have told us that we're going to change. But they haven't actually changed. Not that I can see. Walmart told us it was going to change and not pass the cost of tariffs onto its consumers. And yet, now it is. This is why Reagan believed in the philosophy of trust but verify. And it is words that I have come to live by. And again, you can yell and scream at me all you want, but it doesn't change the fact, since I, as a taxpayer, can't look at the government and say, hey, you know what? I didn't make as much this month as I did last month, so therefore I want to decrease my tax rate. Now, granted, I know what you're about to say, but Rick, your taxes are a percentage of your income, and therefore if you make less, they take less out. I understand that in theory, but that's not how it works for corporations. And I know this because one of the things that I've been trying to explain to everybody is it is not that corporations don't pay taxes. And it's not that CEOs don't have exorbitant tax bills. What happens is, if you're smart, you take a lot of your money that you have and you pour it back into something so that you get to write it off. Now, what was happening before, when we had high federal tax rates, a lot of companies were paying people more money because they got to basically remove it from their books, and then you were responsible for paying those taxes, not them, because they paid it to you as a wage, so therefore they only had to pay a percentage, you had to pay the other percentage, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Then they figured out how to start basically using it to reinvest in their companies. I am not one to tell anybody how they pay their people. because I think the market should be able to decide. If you don't feel like you're making enough money at Walmart, you should be able to put together a resume outlining the things that you have learned while employed there, if it was your first job, and try to see about getting a job somewhere else where the work is similar, but maybe the pay scale is different. The problem that we have anymore, in so many ways, is everybody expects an entry-level position to sustain them for the rest of their lives. And that's how the Democrats have sold it. The fry guy at McDonald's should be able to rent an apartment. Since when? The fry guy at McDonald's ain't never been able to rent a fucking apartment. The dude sacking groceries at Safeway wasn't able to buy a house. What he was able to do is this new thing that Gen Z has found called roommates. You people, I swear to God. You guys think you reinvent every fucking thing. Every fucking thing. All the time. Did you know that if you and 3 of your friends move into a house, you can split your expenses? No, I had no fucking idea. Thanks, youngster, for edumacating me as to how the world works. Oh, sorry. All right, let's see what other trouble I can get into real quick. All right, so we touched on this a little bit ago, but let's dig into it a little bit further. This is from Strife over at Red State. There's no one left to lie to for the left. Democrats are, while there are still some optimistic about their party's future, it's only a third of them. Just over 100 days into Donald Trump's second term, Democrats are deeply pessimistic about the future of their party, says a poll from the Associated Press, no less. More specifically, the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. Among Democrats, only 35% had a very optimistic or even somewhat optimistic view of that party's future. 36% were very or somewhat optimistic about the future. By contrast, 55% of Republicans were optimistic about the GOP's future, and the Lincoln Project and the Bulwark staff joined the 21% who were pessimistic. Why are we still listing them on the GOP side again? Exactly. By contrast, a similar poll by the same organization in July found 57% of Democrats and 47% of Republicans optimistic about their party's future. Up front, we would like to acknowledge the following, barring the title of Christopher Hitchens' 1999 book on the Clinton White House, No One Left to Lie To, not because there is any similarity between the Clinton White House and congressional Democrats of 2025, but because the title aptly describes the current dilemma of the Democrats. And just for fun, let's roll that beautiful bean footage. One moment, please.
Deport all undocumented immigrants. Voters favoring the government trying to deport all 11 million of them. Back in 2016, just 38% of voters wanted the government to try to deport all 11 million undocumented immigrants. Compared to where we are in 2025, 56%, the majority. The American people have come a long way on this issue, much closer to Donald Trump, and I think that's a big part of the reason why Americans are increasingly saying the country is on the right track when it comes to immigration policy, and why Donald Trump's net approval rating on that issue is in the positive.
So again, I would like to point out that we would not have gotten here today if not for you pesky Democrats who decided to steal an election in 2020. Because that's just the truth of it now. And if you still don't believe me, all you have to do is look at the data points now, because they're there. Again, explain to me where 11 million people magically went between the last 4 years and now. Where'd they go? Where? That many people left the country when Joe Biden won? We saved America. We can leave now. You're right. Please. But no, seriously. I have said this before. We would not be where we are right now. We would not be having this whirlwind of the last 100 plus days of Donald Trump trying to do everything all at once. Everybody, what was the name of that Michelle Wu movie? I think that was her. I think that's her name. everything everywhere all at once. It's kind of how I feel like Donald Trump has been for the last 100+ days. I will say, and I know I say this a lot, but just as a reminder, I used to do this kind of stuff. I full time, I started doing this in 2020. Jesus, it is 2023. I'm going on 2 years, which was smack dab in the middle of Joe Biden's term. And life was easy back then. I could write 4 or 5 funny stories. I could do my little content stuff and be done. And now I'm constantly scanning news so often that half the time I'm like, hey, can you cover this story for me instead? Yeah, please. Thank you. Fun times. But yeah. So, and now we're in the middle of everything everywhere all at once, which is what he's doing. And it's been interesting to watch because, again, even some people on the left are finally going, maybe not all of his ideas are bad, which reinforces something that I've been screaming all along. Why are you willing to work with Hitler? Because until 5 minutes ago, he was literally Hitler going to make America an authoritarian regime. But now that you like one of his policies, you're like, I can work with him. At least on this one. Why can you work with Hitler? Very confused by this question and your answer, because you're not behaving as if this man is Hitler. But yes, as we have discussed, and as we have seen, the Democrats never fail to take the side of illegals, including gangsters and terrorists, over that of the safety of Americans. Dan Goldman was wrecked by Kristi Noem over Abrego Garcia and lost it. But I have my own problem with that that exchange with Noem, and I may run the tape in a second. Because, yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to. Hang on. I think I have it. All right, so hang on. I want to run this because I have my own question. Now, she handled it fairly well, in my opinion, but this is something that I'm going to explain in a second. Let me make sure we're on the right tab because I don't think we are. All right, you guys should be seeing everything, and here we go.
Mr. Abrego Garcia, pursuant to this court order.
It's got to be extremely discouraging to be one of your constituents. To see you fight for a terrorist like this and not fight for them is extremely alarming to me.
I'm fighting for due process, and that's under the Constitution.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Due process.
The gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize Ms. Green for 5 minutes questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so we're going to stop right there. This was one of the opening salvos of the discussion that I have a problem with one of Noam's responses, because he asks over and over and over again, are the Times New Roman letters and numbers MS-13 in this photo doctored? Or have they been photoshopped, I think is what he said. And then she started talking about how he's a known gang member, etc. I don't understand why they won't just look them in the face and say, do you not understand that those were put in that photo so that people could understand the meaning of the tattoos underneath those letters and numbers? Maybe it's because they know we already know, but I would drive that point home every time it is brought up. Isn't this a doctored photo since it says MS-13? You know that's not actually on his hands. Do you see what's under the letters MS and the number 13? A marijuana plant, a smiley face, a skull, and whatever the hell the 3 is supposed to represent, which is basically the gang tattoo of MS-13. So consider this translation of hieroglyphics for dummies with tattoos. Because that's exactly what that is. And I don't know why no one, even Donald Trump was served that on a silver platter in a recent interview, and even he didn't say it. Like, you know why that's there, right? It's there because we're explaining to people what the pictures underneath those letters actually represent. That's an easy it's a layup. And it would stop them because, yes, I can admit to you, the letters MS-13 should not be on dudes' knuckles. But why are you not looking at the stuff under those? Which is why those are there. So the people that don't know what that tattoo is, what that set of tattoos is supposed to represent, can understand what it actually represents. Now, again, she did a masterful job by pointing out that you fight harder for gang members and illegal aliens than you do for your own people. And you heard the gasps from the gallery. So she did a pretty good job of face planting the dude. She bodied him. She really did. But she still left meat on the bone. And so many people are, and I don't understand it. I haven't even heard Scott Jennings, who has been questioned on this multiple times, pointing out that the reason that is there is so that everybody that is looking at the picture can understand what they are conveying by those tattoos on his knuckles. That's not the tattoo. What's underneath that is the tattoo. That is so people can understand what those tattoos mean. It's not that hard. But I'm a perfectionist. What can I say? All right. So, remember that Democratic talking point about all the fired air traffic controllers and how they were using that as look at everything Donald Trump's doing by cutting our budget. He's doing this, he's doing that. It's so terrible. We've got one more clip before we take the break. I said clip. I know it didn't come out very clearly, but I know some of you were about to do the giggity thing. So
you got to the department and became secretary. Did you fire a bunch of air traffic control?
I did not, Senator.
Did Mr. Musk do that?
He did not.
Where'd all this stuff come from?
So there were about 350 probationary employees at the FAA that were let go, and we're trying to stream. By the way, there's 46,000 people that work at the FAA, so this was a minuscule percentage. But even air traffic controllers who were probationary employees were excluded. All safety positions were preserved at the FAA, including air traffic controllers. And so I think it's a narrative that some in media and in politics have tried to drive as if we're not focused on safety. But I have been crystal clear, and I think I've said this until my face is blue, though it's not today, but it could be because we did not actually fire any air traffic controllers, Senator. We've been hiring air traffic controllers as quickly as we can.
All right.
And so I don't know how many times I have to say it.
Let's say it.
all right. So when we come back from the break, I've got another update on that story. I think you might find this interesting because it's almost like the Biden administration reenacted a scene from the movie Airplane. Some of you have probably heard about this already, but we're going to talk about it when we come back. Hour one, technically, of a 2-hour show, because we started late, is in the books. Hour two of what would normally be hour three is starting after the break. My name's Rick Robinson. This is my show, and it is the Friday Eve edition of The Rick Robinson Show, right here on KLRNradio.com.
Oh, take your time. Don't live too fast. Troubles will come, and they will pass. You'll find a warm arm.
Hello, friends. You have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy. No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRN Radio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at klrnradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRN Radio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars, come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
My dad was really, really special, and I loved my dad a lot.
I'm proud of him, and that even though he isn't here with us, but he died as a true hero.
I miss everything about him.
In the moment that the officers and I had to come see the children, my biggest reaction was, I don't have 7 arms. I have 7 children who just lost their father, and I don't have 7 arms to wrap around them.
I'm Frank Silla, chairman of the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Our foundation is committed to delivering mortgage-free homes for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families.
To not have to worry financially is a huge peace of mind. The thought of, what in the world will I possibly do to pay the bills? How will I possibly let the children have a life that feels normal? I don't want them to have to quit their piano lessons or their basketball. I don't want them to feel that we have to move into a little apartment and struggle financially in addition to the emotional weight.
There are over 1,000 families that need our help. Tunnel to Towers is honoring those heroes that risk their lives by providing them with mortgage-free homes.
Those who serve us and then lay down their lives protecting our freedoms and our safety, the least we can do is $11 a month to give them that peace of always knowing there's a home, there's that sanctuary when life feels like it's been tipped upside down, because it has, when you lose a parent in the line of duty, to know you can go home, you can be safe, there's no risk of losing your home. That's a peace of mind that I can't believe you can get for $11 a month.
I'd like to ask you to contribute $11 a month to support their efforts.
Please donate $11 a month by calling 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our government was established to secure these rights and for the good that comes from exercising them well. This is why the founders of our great nation chose independence. As do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding. Because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire. Hillsdale College, pursuing truth and defending liberty since 1844.
Ready to learn some medieval combat, kiddo?
You bet, Dad. Let's do this.
You know, spending quality time with your kids is important, but finding a fun and safe way to do it can really be a challenge. That's where halberds come in. Halberds are the perfect way to bond with your kid while teaching them about history and physical fitness. Plus, they're a blast to play with. So next time you're looking for some family fun activity, grab a halberd and get ready to make some memories.
Come on, Dad. Round 2.
Halberds, bringing families together one medieval battle at a time. This commercial brought to you by the KLRNradio.com Ad Council.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
I'm Jordan Klinger, an attorney at McIntyre Law. The decision to hire an attorney after you've been injured is important. The decision on who to hire is even more important. At McIntyre Law, we will settle a case if the offer to our client is fair. Partial justice is no justice at all. At McIntyre Law, we are committed to obtaining full justice for our clients. Contact McIntyre Law at 405-917-5200 or visit us at mcintyrelaw.com.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Hilltop bosses driving 15 cars. The girls come easy and the drugs come cheap. Well, I'll stay skinny cause we just won't eat it. We'll hang out in the coolest bars in the VIP with the movie stars. Every good gold digger's gonna wind up there. Every playboy bunny with a bleached blonde hair. And well, hey, hey, I wanna be a rock star. Hey, hey, I wanna be a rock star.
And welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. It is almost Friday, so for those of you working for the weekend, you are nearly there. Hope you are enjoying the show. I know it's been kind of all over the place today. But in my defense, I worked until 1 in the morning my time, and I've been up since 6 o'clock my time, and I've already covered the SCOTUS thing and a million other things. Oh, so yeah. And Jenny, I don't even know if you're in the chat anymore, but you mentioned 2001 The Space Odyssey was first. No, HAL was not the first evil robot. Robbie the Robot, and I realized I spelled it wrong, would like a word, sir, because he existed long before HAL the killer spaceship computer. And honestly, before I looked it up, I was like, wait, didn't Alien come first? But I forgot. 2001 actually came out in 68. So I was like, but Robbie the Robot was well before that. Because that was even still in black and white. Oh, all right. So sorry, just had to. I had to do the well, actually. Just saying. Oh, so here we go again. This is from Guy Benson over at Town Halls. I don't know if this is the same thing or not. Hang on. Yep. Let me see. Yet again, Gavin Newsom. So let's see. It might actually be the same thing. So let's just kind of go through this together. So even if it is, I've kind of only scraped the surface of the whole, him deciding, hey, California should go nuclear thing. This is from Guy Benson. Cynical Gavin Newsom, otherwise known as Governor Hairgel, repudiates another element of his own record. This is how you know he's planning on running. The governor of California is backtracking against his own record and legacy. Yet again, Gavin Newsom correctly identifies his extremism and failures in California as a threat to the national job promotion he thinks he deserves. So he's been pivoting cynically and often. He performed a 180 on the fairness of biological males in women's sports. We had a field day with that one, pun intended. In a much-discussed podcast interview, as if some sensible-sounding words erases his track record on such issues in his own state. As if to confirm the emptiness of his phony change of heart, he quickly admitted that he wouldn't actually do anything about this newfound embrace of fairness in athletics. He should just be honest and admit he's captured by the same fringe ideology that Senator Chris Murphy just espoused on this issue. He also mocked the wokery of the made-up Latinx term. Our resident Latinx minx, otherwise known as Aggie Regan, would like a word. Just kidding. She hates that word. She threatens to stab me every time I call her that. Invented by activists but rejected by actual Hispanics, he averred he and his office had never employed the nonsense language, but they had. It's odd that I find a word I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that one up and see if there's a typo involved. That's weird. Anyway, but he had repeatedly. He also appeared to stand up to his party's wild-eyed and disturbing radicalism on socialization of minors for sex. But his leadership, in the form of a statement, was instantly discarded by the legislature. Plus, his gubernatorial signature on multiple crazy and alarming laws paved the way for this madness to take hold in the first fucking place. In addition, Newsom is embracing insulting and feeble spin on the breathtaking disaster that is California's high-speed rail boondoggle. Monorail. The monorail. We need the monorail. Sorry, having a Simpsons moment. And now we turn to the law he signed expanding taxpayer-funded healthcare to cover all illegal immigrants in his sanctuary state, where he's very selectively waived sanctuary policies based exclusively on political optics and calculations, to the surprise of zero sentient human beings. That plan is also crashing and burning. Worse than Mav, as far as Slider was concerned. He bragged about his state's progressive leadership on this front, and now he's confronting obvious fiscal realities and beating an embarrassing retreat. Are we sure he's not beating something else? I know, that was terrible. I apologize for nothing. Who could have seen this coming? Aside from absolutely everyone who understands how shit works. This is from Bill Malugin, LA Times. Governor Gavin Newsom calls for walking back free healthcare for illegal aliens in California as costs for coverage have exceeded billions more than what was initially projected. And the state faces likely challenging economic times ahead. This is from Ashley Zavala. Update: California taxpayers next year will spend more than they did this year on the program that gives undocumented people health care coverage at a price tag of currently $12.1 billion to be expected. What happens if there's an influx of signups with the governor's push for new limits? That is to be determined. Governor Gavin Newsom's 2025-2026 revised budget proposal reneges on his signature policy to provide free healthcare coverage to all low-income undocumented immigrants as costs exceed expectations, and the state anticipates challenging economic times ahead. Fiscal cliff looming. Newsom's office said the governor's spending plan, which will be released late Wednesday morning, and I haven't really seen very many updates about it yet. Is anybody? Maybe I'm missing it. Calls for requiring all undocumented adults to pay $100 monthly in premiums to receive Medi-Cal coverage, and for blocking all new adult applications to the program effective January 1st. The cost share will reduce the financial burden on the state and could lower the total number of people enrolled in the healthcare program if some immigrants cannot afford the new premiums. Freezing enrollment may prevent the price tag of the program from continuing to balloon. It won't. After more people signed up for coverage than the state anticipated. Newsom is expected to project a deficit for California in the fiscal year ahead, which includes higher than expected Medi-Cal costs and more significant shortfall estimates in the following year. In the current budget year, the governor and lawmakers approved a $2.8 billion appropriation and took out a separate $3.4 billion loan just to pay for the extra expenses for Medi-Cal through June. I would like to point out again, that's through June. Danger, Rick Robinson, danger. I'm sorry, had to be done. If you're not in the chat, you have no idea why I just did that. It's not my fault. Anyway, but yeah, so yeah, shortfalls everywhere. Fiscal cliffs looming in California. Let's not forget that Governor Newsom has also decided that nuclear is on the table regarding power generation in California, which brings me to the topic that I wanted to talk about, since we were actually talking about the ATC a bit before I went to break and came back with an entirely different train of thought. Oh, look, squirrel. So an interesting thing, two interesting things happened while Pete Buttigieg, or as I call him, Mr. Booty Juice, basically has been taking victory laps and trying to rub Scott Bessent's nose and everything that's happened since he's become transportation secretary. There's been some interesting developments. One, it has now come to our attention that in 2024, the Biden administration, while still having Mr. Booty Juice as the transportation secretary, decided that the Newark Air Traffic Control Division could be consolidated with the Philadelphia Air Traffic Control Division, therefore making it that people from hundreds of miles away were monitoring using modern electronic equipment all incoming and outgoing flights for both EWR, actually for EWR, most likely DCA and IAD because of the range. I used to work for an airline, so let me translate. Newark International Airport, Reagan Dulles International, and what's the other guy's name? Oh, wait, no, Dulles is separate. I did the same thing Amish did the other night. So, yeah, so the EWR airport, and then also Dulles as well as Reagan. Because, you know, there's like hundreds of miles of range there. But, so that's the first thing. Then it turns out that because we're using over 40-year-old equipment, that there were communication failures between the systems because they didn't harden the communication lines before they made the changeover. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Does everybody remember the scene from Airplane where the little dude that honestly kind of reminds me of Louis Lidd from Suits is sitting there and just, you know, the dude's trying to look at the radar and he's like, hey, 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 and holding up the plug? What if I told you that under the Biden administration, that whole helicopter crash at, I think that was DCA was where that happened. I can't remember if it was Dulles or DCA where the helicopter crash happened, but I know it was one of those two because those are the ones that I usually fly into or fly out of when I'm going to CPAC, and that's why I didn't go this year. Like, I'm not running the risk of that, not with everything that's going on. But an interesting thing happened. So there's supposed to be, remember the red phone, like the bat phone or the red phone that used to be on the president's desk? There's a hotline that's supposed to go from, I think it's DCA, directly to the Pentagon and from the Pentagon. So they can let them know when they are running exercises in the area. Somehow, nobody within the Biden administration within the last 4 years knew that bitch had been unplugged, nor did they care. When this administration found out about it, when they were like, oh, this phone is supposed to be working, and they picked it up and there was nothing. They didn't even find that out until May. Now, I would like to point out what makes this even more frustrating to me is figuring out that Bessent admitted when he was being questioned. I think he's already appeared before Congress for some of this stuff, and he basically was told that the outgoing Transec, as I call Buttigieg for obvious reasons, or Booty Juice, told him that this was a division that basically ran itself, and he had absolutely nothing to worry about. Fun times, right? Fun times, right? So, but here's the thing. What if I told you this isn't the only problem? What if I told you that part of the reason that even Governor Hairgel, otherwise known as Gavin Newsom, is putting nuclear back on the table? I said that right? For the longest time, because I'm from Oklahoma, I used to say it like Bush 43 said it, and occasionally I'm like, it didn't come out that way, did it? So I'm rewinding the little tape. I guess I said it right because nobody yelled at me. Yeah, I used to say it nuclear. Took me a minute to even remember how to say it. It's not my fault. That's how my dad said it. It's how my granddad said it. It's not my fault. But anyway, but there's a reason he's put nuclear. See, this is why I don't missay it anymore, because then I get stuck. I used to as a joke, and then it was almost impossible to switch back. Because we're now discovering that the Biden administration, with all of their supposed money they were pouring back into infrastructure, did almost nothing for our electrical grid. Almost nothing. To the point where they have left it on the brink of failure for no matter who was to come next. And this is one of the reasons why I tell you, I don't think they expected us to be around still. There was something they were trying to do that somehow managed to be stopped. And it'll probably be a while before we figure it out, because everything that I'm seeing points to they were anticipating or orchestrating catastrophic failures across the board for reasons that we don't yet know. Now, you take into account, and again, if you've been listening to KLR Radio, you know this for forever. You take into account that China, who manufactures the power inverters that are used in our solar panels and our windmills and pretty much everything else, was including alternative signal devices. So what was happening was people were importing these power inverters from China, doing basic research, making sure there was nothing that seemed out of place or weird, and then installing firewalls, etc., to keep them from supposedly being able to communicate with China. But because they were unaware of these extra communicable devices, they were unaware that the machines can and probably were sending data back to somewhere in China, and also were likely able to be accessed remotely. Could this possibly have anything to do with the widespread power failure in Europe about a week ago? I would be willing to venture the answer to that question is yes, which is probably why this story has resurfaced again. If you've been paying attention to us for a while, then you know because we had a show called Cyber Chill that talked about this a long ass time ago, because it made the news a long time ago. This is why I'm telling you, and even as I'm watching everything unfold in the Middle East, and I'm like, this is actually not a terrible idea, because he's trying to embody a quote that was attributed to Lincoln: "If I do in fact make my enemy my friend, have I not therefore destroyed that enemy?" So I know what he's trying to do, and I hope it works. But Nixon had the same thought with China all the way back in 1970 something. And it didn't work out the way we hoped. So again, trust but verify, keep watching it. Now, it is fun watching all the Democrats' heads explode. Like even some of Biden's aides now are like, I never expected him to just bulldoze through all these taboo things that we were told we were never supposed to do over there, and just watch them go, we'll work with you anyway. Because it's just interesting to me watching the difference between the two administrations. Now, I do, and this is coming from a co-host of mine who's been on a bit of a break because of work, Stacey Lennox. She has questions as to why we're arming Qatar. I kind of have those same questions, because it doesn't really make any sense to me, but we'll see. Now, I don't, so, and that's the thing. A lot of folks are okay with the Qatar thing, but they have questions as to why we're removing the sanctions in Syria. I have an explanation for that I find plausible. You guys can either point and laugh or tell me if you agree, or both. You can do both. Embrace the power of and. It's fine. I can point and laugh and still tell you you're right, just because I'm looking at your face, bitch. Just saying. Okay. I have an explanation that I think probably makes sense, because the reason we put the sanctions on in the first place was to get rid of the dude that ain't there no more. Now, I know that the new guy is supposedly, it's one of those new boss, probably a lot like the old boss things, but I also understand why the current administration is like, shouldn't we give him a chance to prove to us that he wants to work with us or not before we start strangling him to death again? So I kind of see why they're doing what they're doing, because now you're like, okay, you guys saw what we did to the last guy. You've got a new guy. We're gonna lighten up a bit. Now, play nice, or we're gonna strangle you again. And I kind of think that might be what's going on with Qatar. And there's a reason why I wanted to come to this first before I went back to that, to connect the dots. Because Qatar, everybody pronounces everything weird. Like Kiev is now Kyiv because, well, That's how the Ukrainians. But I don't fucking care. I'm not Ukrainian. And I get it. As somebody that's been trained to speak Spanish, I will try to drop. I do find myself dropping into the accent. So I kind of get it. But at the same time, it's still annoying as fuck. I know. I'm a hypocrite. I embrace this. It's fine. We're all hypocrites in one degree or another. Exactly. I believe it's a hand stretched out in an attempt to offer the cookie. Although we are of a different generational gap, so I thought of something else when I read cookie, but that's my own fault. Don't want the cookie? Sure. Here comes the destruction. Don't say I didn't offer. Yeah, I get it. I think that's kind of where we're going to. And I kind of think that's what's going on with Cutter because they've been instrumental in a few things lately. So I think he's kind of like, well, since you've been helping us, let's see if we can help you. And to answer one of my co-host concerns, because if any of the equipment that we are currently about to sell them winds up being used on us, I'm pretty sure their capital will be see-through. Trying to make sure I don't get killed from YouTube. Think about it. What is something you can see through when in your Windows? Trust me, you'll get it. Not that I really care about getting pulled from YouTube. All right, so I told you guys that we were going to be going less commercial, but I do need to take a break. If for no other reason than I've just discovered that my coffee has gone cold. And if I haven't made iced coffee, I don't like the taste of cold coffee when it's not expected. So we're going to take a quick break just so I can freshen that up a bit. And we'll be right back to finish out the show. My name's Rick Robinson. This is my show, and it's Friday Eve. And we'll be right back after I refresh my coffee. Or I may actually make iced coffee. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I'm indecisive. Don't look at me.
Hi, I'm Jay Parno, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage option makes sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For JD Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to the Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and... she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had one blade and polio. Looking good, pop up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu, I drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you. See you, see you, see you.
Not to be a backseat driver, but can you say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
I'm Jordan Klinger, an attorney at McIntyre Law. The decision to hire an attorney after you've been injured is important. The decision on who to hire is even more important. At McIntyre Law, we will settle a case if the offer to our client is fair. Partial justice is no justice at all. At McIntyre Law, we are committed to obtaining full justice for our clients. Contact McIntyre Law at 405-917-5200 or visit us at mcintyrelaw.com.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rick Robinson. We're in the final segments of the It's Almost Friday edition, or Friday Eve edition of the Rick Robinson Show. I know it was an abbreviated show because of SCOTUS. It's not my fault. I mean, kind of is, because I'm the boss over there too. But I thought that was important. So I hope we had almost 300 to be hanging out over there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. So far, the feed over here has been a little low. Kind of okay with that, though, because we still got over 200 my first hour on the other stuff. So it's all right. I will take it. Anyway, so we're back. We're live. And it's almost Friday. And because it is almost Friday, I would like to make an announcement. Almost forgot. So once upon a time, we at first K98 Talk and then eventually KLRN Radio. Once upon a time, we had our very own house parody band known as the Third Rail Ramblers. You can still find their catalog, limited as it may be, on our Spreaker account. They have their own subpage. There will, however, because Friday is where we try to have a little bit more fun, there will, however, be a world premiere of a new song put out by our very own Third Rail Ramblers, who are, at least for the moment, if not, it may even be just for this one release, are coming out of retirement. In case you don't know who our Third Rail Rambler crew are, those are none other than at Two Cynic Al and the artist formerly known as Beaker, who now chooses to remain nameless. So, which is why we refer to him as the artist formerly known as Bigger. So, yes, there will be a new drop for them tomorrow. It will air first here. Later in the afternoon after the show, it will be added into their catalog on our Spreaker feed and probably also put out on SoundCloud. So I hope you guys tune in for that tomorrow. I just got permission to run it. There was so Inside Baseball. They started with JD and Stacy back in the day with Game On JD, with Game On with JD and Stacy. Now that was originally a property that belonged to We Are America Radio. However, a lot of the We Are America Radio crew had a falling out with the guy that I commonly refer to as the CPAC bellhop, known as Wayne Dupree, and eventually most of them came over here. Even the ones that went elsewhere eventually came over here. So that's how Stacy and I started working together. That's how JD and I started working together. JD and Stacy were with us throughout the entirety of K98 Talk, and actually even for the inception of KLRM Radio. And then JD's life got crazy and he stepped aside, and now they've been talking about trying to come back. And then Stacy's life went crazy, which is why we haven't been doing whatever as much lately. So since they had already, they thought it appropriate since they started with them, that since they were bringing back a show together, that they go ahead and prep, because it was supposed to have kicked off a while ago, and get a song ready to go. And then everybody's life went nuts again. So instead of it just sitting there and almost nobody knowing about it, and before it is even less relevant, I'm making the executive decision with their permission to run it on my show tomorrow. So yeah, make sure you tune in for that. It will probably be right about now. So if I see a bunch of you pile in after about 2:30, then I'll know you're only here for the song and you hate me. No, not really. I don't care. Look, I've worked in terrestrial radio. I understand how the metrics work. The thing that because everybody, I have millions of people that tune into me for every day. Yeah, for usually a maximum of about 15 minutes if you're lucky. That's how drive time radio works. If you can capture somebody's attention for 15 minutes and do it in large groups, then you're winning. This is different. This is long form format content. And I understand that we're trying to do long form format content with people that have the attention span of gnats. I don't I don't mean that as an insult, because I am one of them. Which is why if we can capture, and it happened again last night. By the end of last night at 3, almost 2, a little after 2 a.m. Eastern time, we had over 900 people tuned into our feed for that entire night. That is crazy to think about when you think about how small we actually are. We are at times outperforming groups 4 and 5 and 6 times our size on particular social media platforms. Just saying. And luckily enough, BZ is usually our closing act. So when I get to drop those numbers with him, I in the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, when I found, because I'm not gonna lie, he's in the chat right now. I had no idea how old you were. I think you actually have a year on my dad. So when I figured that out, and I had been dropping these numbers in a private chat with him that he was never expecting to see or hear about, and I was like, I hope I'm not going to cause this man to keel over. Still love you, man, but it actually was a thought of mine for a moment. Because I'll be honest, you don't look your age. So stop beating yourself up about how old you are, I guess, is the message that I'm getting to here. Because you're 13 like the rest of us. You had this discussion on your show the other night. So just embrace that. For those of you who weren't there, there was some fun with Chat GPT in SHR Media's version of the Green Room. What BZ didn't know, because I'm not actually in there, and that's fine, I haven't asked to be in there, is Sean was showing me what he was doing with Chat GPT, and had sent me, this is what Chat GPT was able to do, and then just because it's BZ, I added a shark and fart bubbles. I'm like, that's awesome, but the shark should be turning upside down. We both laughed. He sent me the picture. I did not know this, however, because again, I'm not a member of that group. one of the other host's wife had seen it and said, the bubbles should really be green if they're noxious enough to kill a shark. That was the pièce de résistance. I'm just saying that pushed it over. That was amazing. When I saw that, I was like, I can't believe I didn't think of that. I'm sad that I didn't think of that, but I can't believe I didn't think of that. And yeah, but yes, if you are since I do several male related podcasts, and that's MALE, not MAIL. If you are unclear about how we operate, we are all anywhere between the ages of 11 and 13 at heart. Just so you know. Fun times. All right. This is a question that I want the answer to, and Madeline Leesman posed it today. I know I usually try to do the fun stuff at the end, which is why we took a brief detour into ChatGPT, etc. But this is a question that I want answered as well. Is the Doge caucus in Congress dead? Because I'm starting to have concerns. Democratic Florida Representative Jared Moskowitz told Politico this week that the Congressional Doge caucus is dead. As Town Hall covered, Elon Musk spearheaded the Department of Government Efficiency, otherwise known as DOGE, which was formed right after President Donald Trump took office. Not really. They just renamed the department that already existed. That was created by Obama, for fuck's sake. The agency has been slashing wasteful funding at a slew of government agencies. The DOGE caucus is dead. It's defunct. We haven't met in months. We only had 2 total meetings in 5 months, and we weren't involved at all in anything happening at Doge, which Elon was in charge of. Zero, zilch, nada. Musk did it all on his own, Moskowitz told the outlet. Politico reached out to Rep. Aaron Bean, Republican Florida, who is one of the co-chairs of the caucus. Congress can enact long-term change, and our 100 committed members and 8 specialized working groups are working to codify critical reforms and preparing legislation that will unlock savings for the American people, Bean said in a statement. Politico added that many Democrats have changed their minds about Doge after many government employees were axed via Politico. Oh, they didn't really. They've never changed their mind about Doge. And this is a quote from the article. Democrats, for their part, have largely withdrawn their support for the idea of Doge in the wake of the dismissal of thousands of federal employees and the elimination of entire agencies. In recent months, many reports have indicated that Musk would step back from Doge in the coming weeks, and OMB Director Russ Vought takes over control. But my question, and while this was being discussed, this was not, while I had the same question, this is not why I was wanting to know. Why are the senators, Republican senators no less, telling us they have no interest in codifying any of the Doge cuts? You know what this tells me? You know what that tells. You know what that tells me? They're involved in the kickbacks. I'm sorry. Let me fix it, because while I'm not an attorney, I do know attorneys, and I have Gene's voice screaming in my head. Allegedly, they are likely involved in the alleged kickbacks. Why else would they not want to save you and me money? Why else would they not want to make the government more efficient? And I understand they feel like they're losing the narrative battle when it comes to the Medicaid, Medicare stuff, because the media is just latching on to this whole, oh my God, they're trying to gut Medicare and Medicaid. Removing waste, and especially the fraud from those programs, is not gutting it. It's actually making it go further, you fucking retards. But this is my question. With the overall popularity of the zombie media right now, and the overall popularity of the Democratic caucus, why are the Republicans still acting as if they are controlled opposition? Is it because they have been all along? Because that's the question I need an answer to at this point. Because the Republican Party was formed specifically because the Whig Party died out. We are watching what could be the death of the Democratic Party, but if we're not careful, it could also be the death of the Republican Party. And at this point, I'm not wondering if both parties don't deserve to die. George Washington warned against political parties because tribalism is a terrible idea when it comes to how a representative republic is supposed to work. I understand tribalism is human nature. It's all throughout history. Typically, we stick to our own because we understand them. We have common language. We have common beliefs. All of those things. So we stick to our own. But in the process of trying to become this one beautiful big world, a lot of that has been trying to be changed. It's not working the way the people that wanted to do it were intending originally, which is why they have adjusted. We've talked about this. If you don't know your history, the original plan for after World War II was to tie everybody's economies together so that there was never another war like this one ever again. Or if there was, the entire world would suffer and likely not come back from it. There's a reason they wanted to do that. But it's also, and if you don't believe me, just look at history. This happened in the 40s. They started tying all of our economies together. Look at every war since, and I say war with air quotes, even though I didn't make them, but I'm sure you could tell from the inflection. We fought Korea to a standstill. We fought Vietnam to a standstill. First Gulf War, standstill. Second Gulf War, standstill. Because our military is no longer allowed to kill people and break things as required, because if they do their job properly, they're going to drop the entire world into a tailspin. If you don't believe me, look at what happened with COVID. And let's take an even less extreme example. How close did we get to the entire world economy collapsing when Greece collapsed financially? Or Venezuela, for that matter. For reasons. But the reason they started trying to tie everything together, and the reason that America became Atlas after World War II and tried to put the weight of the entire world on our shoulders, was because we were the only ones who came out of World War II with the ability to be able to do that. But at the same time, there were things that were put in motion. We had this grand idea of tying all the world's economies together, which we thought would eventually start elevating third world countries into second world countries into first world countries, and then eventually the new United Nations and everything else that was just founded would become our one world government. Agenda 2030, previously Agenda 2021. Hello, how you doing? Now, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, all the way back to this whole thing about California, now deciding that the green energy stuff from California ain't enough. Gavin Newsom talking about nuclear energy again. The granola munching, tree hugging hippies in California, they pissed off right now. But what does this do? Because if any part of America starts actively pursuing nuclear energy again, that means we are barred from ever entering the Paris Climate Accords ever again. Which I don't have a problem with. But as a left-leaning lunatic, Gavin Newsom saying we're even putting nuclear back on the table, this should let everybody know how broken everything is. And this goes back to exactly what I was talking about a second ago. There was something in place, or they were trying to put something in place that was going to lead to a catastrophic failure before Biden left office, and somehow it didn't get pulled off. But all of the stuff is still there. Start looking at this from a different perspective. DEI was infesting and infecting everything to the point where Boeing had parts falling off of planes, where inspectors were watching employees jumping up and down on heat panels to make sure they fit on the wings properly, etc. They disconnected the emergency line between the Pentagon and the Washington, D.C. airports. They have overloaded the power grid to the point and tried to green new energy the power grid to such a point that now even everyone's looking at it and going, this thing was moments away from failure. What was the Biden administration doing? Glenn Beck's been talking about it now for weeks. Joe Biden left whoever was going to be president ticking time bombs on so many different levels that I firmly believe what their plan was. Because trust me, they would have blamed the Russians or the Chinese or anybody else. This wasn't us. This was Russia. This was China. They were whoever's been pulling his strings, the unconstitutional, unelected people that were were running the government as a panel while Biden was being hauled around Weekend at Bernie style, had a plan. And stay with me for a second, because you have to remember, even Speaker Johnson and a couple of other Congress critters and senators have said, I tried to have conversations with Joe Biden about things that had his signature on them, and he couldn't even remember signing them. He had no idea that he had done it. So how many things were they setting up like dominoes, just waiting for the doddering old fool to make it back across the finish line again, and then flip the switch? Think about it from this perspective. If the power grid and the phone and the FAA stuff and everything started failing in various sectors around the country, what do you think would happen? Especially if Joe Biden was still in charge, or I'm sorry, the folks that were handling Joe Biden. Anybody remember the TV show Revolution? I think that's what it was called. The one where like a worldwide, everybody thought it was a worldwide EMP, but it turns out it was like some sort of nanobots that were making sure that electricity couldn't be generated, etc. Anybody remember that show? Because in a much different fashion, it appears that the cabal handling Biden were attempting to orchestrate something very similar. And let me explain to you why, because I've been saying this all along. Why have they been pushing us to the point of near failure? Why are they sending everything they can to everywhere else and watching us be on the brink of collapse? The answer was in the question, ladies and gentlemen. What happened? What did we, as a nation, as a country, as a group of people, decide to do after the end of World War II? We rebuilt the world. If we are not here, the world collapses. If the world collapses, Agenda 2030 is not only still on schedule, but actually not too far from their original target date of Agenda 2021 or Agenda 21. This was the plan. If Hillary Clinton had won in 2016, it would have already happened. Why do you think they had planned to destroy the Trump family one way or the other? And I submit to you, and I know I say this a lot, and everybody looks at me like I'm crazy when I do. I want you to think about this. Now, seeing everything that we now know, and hindsight being 2020, all of the things that they've lied to you about since 2020, all of them. Imagine how much differently the Russian collusion narrative would have played out if the Democrats were running the White House in 2017 and 2016. I think in 2017. Election was 16, sworn in 17. How much differently would that have played out? And I submit to you, because if you can go back and they're there, you can look at the tapes, you can watch some of the crazy, crazy shit Donald Trump was saying in 2016. And I guarantee you, he was supposed to lose. He's standing on a debate stage in 2016 saying, well, if I'm president, the military has to do what I tell them to do. So if I tell them to go kick in doors, that's what they're going to do. If any other person on the planet had said that, everybody would have run away screaming. And yet somehow he still held on to most of his base. This is one of the first times when I was like, okay, I'm really not trying to buy into the scare tactics of the media and of the left when it comes to this guy. But when I hear him on a debate stage sounding like Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls, I have a huge fucking problem. But it occurred to me as I'm watching him make one outlandish statement after the other and openly mock a disabled person, which I will admit pissed me off. And don't tell me that he didn't do it. I understand why he did it, because we all fucking do it. I have friends that make fun of me for my disabled ass all the time. Which eye are you looking at me with, motherfucker? I just learned to live with it. And eventually I started laughing at it too. I don't fucking care anymore. But That would have just those two things alone would have destroyed anybody else. But he realized no matter what I do, these people are still going to vote for me. And he said as much to prove the point that he wasn't supposed to win. He looked directly at the camera and said, at this point, I'm pretty sure I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and I'd still get voted for. Again, that would have sent, in any other time in history, everybody running for another candidate, which tells you exactly how bad Kenkel's really was. And most of the other Republican choices, for that matter. And I think the Clintons knew it. And how do I know that I think the Clintons knew it? How bad she was? Because they had an idea. Everybody forgets that before he stepped off that escalator in 2015, he was friends with every fucking Democrat. Oprah Winfrey wanted to be his fucking vice president if he ever ran for president. Bill Clinton was the one that picked up the phone and said, hey, I think you should run against my wife. What do you think about that? Excuse me? So you're telling me that this all happened with a phone call between the husband of your opponent and yourself, keeping in mind that each family had attended the weddings of their children, respectively. And there wasn't any hint of a fix being in? There wasn't any hint of the fix being in? But what happened was, because if you remember, some of the most outlandish things that he said happened after the primary debates. What happened was, and I don't think the Clintons took this into account, after you win the primary and you are potentially the next president of the United States, you start getting included in security briefings. They should have known this. I don't know why it didn't occur to them, but I guarantee you what had happened at some point along the way, and it was probably just the most innocuous seeming thing included in a briefing that started helping him put the pieces together that if I don't win this shit, I'm done. Because you can see it. There was one moment where he went from saying the most outlandish, stupid shit that he could to seriously running for president. And it was not too long after he started receiving security briefings. You don't believe me? Go back and look at the tapes. There was something that tipped him off. And remember, history may not necessarily repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And when I started putting all these pieces together, so many years ago now, the one thing that kept running through my head was when Lyndon Baines Johnson got the Republican Party to support the Civil Rights Act, even though his own party wouldn't do it. But he knew, because it's going to be my signature on the document, and I quote, if we can get this thing passed, we'll have these stupid fucking niggers voting for us for the next 100 years. That's when that just on a loop kept running in my head. And then after he won, and they still tried it all. Remember, CIA, FBI collusion, all of the things that were starting to be dripped and drabbed out from their perspective about this is Donald Trump, he's a Russian traitor, he's done this, he's done that. And then, because they weren't able to be the ones completely controlling the flow of the information, other things were coming to light that were kind of casting doubts onto their premise. But again, imagine if that had not been the case. Imagine if it was Hillary Clinton sitting in the White House. They would have lined that family up and shot them for treason. And it would have been at least another 100 years before anybody ever thought about voting Republican again. And by then, because they expected the tipping point to be within that 4-year period, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Because if you think about it, 17 to 4 years later is when? 2021. When they realized that they weren't on schedule, they started making noise about calling it Agenda 2030. And then they got greedy and try to get anyway with COVID. All right, so there's my final tinfoil hat theory for the day. Hope you guys enjoyed the Thursday edition of the Rick Robinson Show. But we have unfortunately reached the point in the program where I do have to tell you, this one, she's over. Don't forget, I should be back tonight, hopefully, as long as Jen is available. First, Jen and Rick, 10 p.m. Eastern. But before that, make sure you come out and hang out for the, which one is it today? Oh, yeah, Culture Shift. The one I don't push buttons for. That one starts at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And whether Jen and I are here or not, come hang out in the saloon. 11 p.m. Eastern, BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. For our last call here on KLRN Radio. Powered by SHR Media for the night shift. Bye, everybody.
What? Over? Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is! Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
Closing time. Open all the doors and let you out into the woods.
This isn't over until I say it's over!
Closing time.
Well, that's great. That's just fucking great, man. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? Game over, man. Game over.
Closing time. Time for you to go out to the places you will be from. Closing time. This room won't be open till your brothers or your sisters come.
I love you, Oklahoma. What a great crowd. I love you.
Say goodnight, Gracie.